Howard was born in Keighley, West Yorkshire, on 17 July 1921 to Fred and Bertha Stowell. Keighley was a town to which he remained very attached and loyal all his life. He welcomed the arrival of a brother, David, who was born in 1927. Howard's childhood was a happy one. There were lots of other family members in the Keighley area. As a child he regularly attended Sunday school at Temple Street Methodist Church and was presented with books for 100% attendance. As Howard grew up, he was taught the piano, and his lessons went well enough for him to be encouraged to play the organ in his early teens. He doubtless enjoyed the opportunity to play both piano and organ to the whole congregation. Howard attended Keighley Grammar School. It became apparent only recently to us that he was placed in the top stream. So it was that he formed a strong lifelong friendship with the code-breaker and historian Asa Briggs. In later years, when Howard and Stella made their annual visit to Keighley, they would pick up Lord Briggs from the station, and take him to Haworth, where he would preside over the annual meeting of the Brawny Society of which they were members. Howard gained his school leaving certificate, his only formal qualification, and left school. Consequently, years later when he was joining the UN as an advisor, this was the only qualification he could list. Howard joined Robert Clough's, which was a huge wool mill. He was employed as an office boy, which took him to all parts of the mill. His 15 months there gave him a very good understanding of the textile trade, which was to feature in his UN work. He also picked up some practical skills as he would pack and dispatch parcels to all over the world. Parcel wrapping was one job he enjoyed at Christmas. In 1938, Howard applied to the civil service by competitive exam. He was successful and was assigned to the Air Ministry and posted to London. Howard was a frequent visitor to the House of Commons, and was assigned his own seat in the public gallery, from which he could see the arrival of Attlee and Churchill as they entered the chamber. The Air Ministry moved out of London and relocated to Bristol as the drums of war sounded, and volunteered to join the Fleet Air Arm. He was disappointed to be turned down on eyesight grounds, though he never wore glasses. Of his school contemporaries who joined the Fleet Air Arm, they were all killed in the war, including his close friend Arnold. In memory of Arnold, John took his middle name on birth. Howard joined the Royal Navy, and served for more than 5 years, from 1941 to 1946, including service in HMS Tetcott, the Hunt-class destroyer. Tetcott's role in the war was particularly impressive, sinking the U-boat U-372 in August 1942. Howard also manned the Oerlikon gun to take on the dreaded Stuka dive bombers. Howard witnessed early in his service the shocking fall of Tobruk, and the submarine attack on their sister ship, which sank very quickly, but the axis of war turned for the better. Howard was on convoy duty when the siege on Malta was lifted, followed by landings in Sicily prior to Anzio. On return to the UK, Howard was posted to the Commander-in-Chief's office in Portsmouth, just before D-Day, June 6, 1944. There he met Stella, who was a typist in the office and preparing D-Day orders around the clock. They were married at St. Mark's Church in North End, Portsmouth on the 6th of March 1948, and honeymooned in Bournemouth. Howard recalled that on their outward journey, the coach was very full so that he and Stella sat seats apart. He took the opportunity to read the Football Mail. Happily married for 62 years, they were delighted to celebrate their diamond wedding anniversary with the family. Howard and Stella lived at Chessington in Surrey for 7 years, during which time Howard was working at Inland Revenue Headquarters in Somerset House. He routinely cycled into work. John was born in 1953, and the twins, Graham and Helen, in 1955. By which stage the family were living in Worthing. This was followed by a move to Cardiff, where they lived for 9 years. Howard was in charge of the Inland Revenue Audit Centre there. He particularly enjoyed the autonomy this job afforded. The family moved into a lovely house on the Heath and made many friends. We all enjoyed our schooling. And it came as something of a shock and upset that Dad was to be transferred back to London. Work for him was a succession of compulsory transfers, as they called them. It was then that a decision was made to move to Portsmouth, with Howard enduring a long daily train journey. For the family it worked out well in the end, as we moved in next door to Stella's sister's house. The Martins and Stowells loved this arrangement. In his early 50s, Howard took the decision to apply for a posting to Customs and Excise, and from then on he worked out of their headquarters, in Kingsbeam House in the heart of the city. He didn't enjoy his train journey, which was now even longer, but it was compensated for by the buzz of working in the capital, and opportunities for working on EEC negotiations. A career in international work blossomed. He became head of the international section and was a frequent visitor to Brussels, on over 100 occasions, as well as to Paris for the meetings of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and to Geneva, which encompassed the United Nations. On Howard's first visit to a full General Assembly of UNCTAD, Trade and Development, he was nominated to be Vice President and Rapporteur. In what might be described as a dynamic situation, he was also appointed President of the Council. In a further complexity, and another curve ball, he was then required to chair the whole conference for several sessions in the absence of the chair. This was heady stuff. The postscript to all of this was that Hugo Cubillos, the Chilean ambassador who held a very senior role at the UN, offered Howard an opportunity to accompany him on visits to Madagascar, South Africa, and other countries. The Foreign Office approved this arrangement, and in June 1979, Ambassador Cubillos asked Howard to be his regional advisor for Asia and the Pacific and to be based in Colombo. Howard was in the conventional way approaching retirement, but it didn't take him long to resign from the civil service and to take on this new role. Geoffrey Howe wrote to him wishing him well. He traveled extensively in his new role to many countries in the region, and also became sufficiently proficient in French to manage questions and answers sessions. On the conclusion of his appointment, he continued to take on missions to countries such as India and Pakistan. He had previously visited China, which was a developing country at this time, and he was asked to join their Foreign Trade Institute in Beijing. This was challenging. He was the only European and was kitted out in the standard issue blue Chinese jacket, which he wore with pride. He wrote a manual entitled English for Chinese Customs Workers. Howard and Stella made a point through their lives of systematic travel. As a family, we would always spend a summer holiday over a fortnight in 2 places. In this way, we visited most of the UK. Stella, coming from a naval family, was herself well traveled, and they took the opportunity to revisit Bermuda, New South Wales and Malta. They also visited great waterfalls of the world: Niagara, Victoria Falls. and the huge Iguazu Falls in Argentina. They traveled widely, and particularly enjoyed 3 wonderful and extensive visits to close family in New Zealand. Once even walking the formidable Milford Track in South Island. Outside of work, Howard was a keen and active cyclist, who took great delight in keeping detailed records recording his rides and distance covered, beginning at the age of 11, and continuing for 80 years. On the occasion of his 90th birthday, he was still happily in the saddle as we holidayed in his beloved Yorkshire Dales. There are 3 very noteworthy rides that stand out. The first is a tour of Scotland when he was demobbed from the Navy. The second, a ride through day and night from home to work, and back to Chessington, for tea, and then on to Tavistock in Devon to meet up with Stella. Around 220 miles. The third, also when he had retired, spent a day cycling around the Isle of Wight which totaled 102 miles. At Drayton, he played an active role over a long period in the affairs of the church as a steward, Christmas bazaar organizer, property secretary, and in particular as church organist and pianist. He was very proud of a particular Sunday evening service when, under the chairmanship of Tony Ellick, he presented a Desert Island Hymns program, during which he was able to explain reasons for his favorite hymns, and to pay tribute to his father, whose musical attributes he so warmly appreciated. Howard and Stella were immensely proud of their 3 children, and were thrilled to have 8 grandsons. And of course, were delighted as the family expanded with the birth of 9 grandchildren. Both Howard and Stella were grateful and appreciative of all the care and attention that they received in later life. It's simple though, isn't it? Love begets love. The First Sea Lord, and Chief of Naval Staff, Sir Tony Raducan, wrote a personalized letter to Howard on the occasion of his 100th birthday. Appropriately, it was delivered by the Commandant of Portsmouth Naval Base. An occasion shared with the whole family.